All right, so I'm back and I got some cards. So we're going to take a look at them. And this is going to be, I think, for the Greasefang. This can also be there from those as well. So little unboxing today. I'm really excited about the Greasefang deck for Commander. It is the best deck in Best of One in Pioneer. So, you know, of course it's going to be pretty decent in Commander. So far my decks are like, I wouldn't say like, they don't have like the huge, you know, money sinks in them yet. Like mana crit, you know, like your $300 cards. I do have a Force of Will in my Dimir deck now, so that's kind of nice. I think the most expensive deck card in this particular Commander deck is going to be the Meathook Massacre. So if that comes in today, we can kind of check that out. But here's my little subtotal. Looks like I'm getting 42 line items in here today. So yeah, I think for instance we have the 4463. I think that's going to be the Meathook Massacre. And there's a couple more pricey cards in here as well. So sweet. Let's check it out, and we can go through the cards one by one and kind of geek out on them as we go. But I'm very, very, very pleased. I know this deck is going to perform well because I've played it in the standard format. I did do Abzan Greasefang. You know, when they were just basically blinking in the Esca's Chariot. There wasn't any Parthellian 2 vehicles in that standard, so it wasn't so strong, but it was still very good. It would definitely bring you to Mythic if you wanted to kind of play Greasefang. It was definitely something you could do at the time. So similar pattern of play, I'd say that you want to use for Greasefang is these kind of discard outlets. So for instance, the Guardian of New Benalia is something that you can activate at any time. Like for instance, you can activate it at opponent's end steps, where you basically discard a card and this creature will become indestructible to end of turn. Just that it's just going to be a solid 2-drop here. It also has that enlistability where if you have a non-summoning sick creature out and you attack with it, then you can enlist the other creature, and this creature would gain the power of the other creatures that you had used to enlist it. You can tap one non-attacking creature. Also, when this creature attacks, you can scry 2 when it enlists another creature on your board. So it's really cool. That's out of the Dominaria United set. I love this. I love this card to reanimate. I had this definitely in some versions in my standard deck, the Thundersteel Colossus. What's really cool about this card is its crew cost is so low. So when you do cheat it out with Greasefang, it only costs 2 to crew. So you could crew like one of your 2-mana plebs, or you know, a combination of some other low power creatures. Greasefang obviously will crew it as well, so you're going to be getting in for a decent amount of damage. So Thundersteel Colossus is super solid. This is another creature that kind of activates that discard potential for Greasefang, the Fleeting Spirit. I love these cards a lot. Like, I think this one is my favorite though, because it has the basically it exiles its stealth, so it becomes like immune to most like any types of interaction. Like for instance, if someone play like a Farewell or something, you could basically blink this out and have it return at the next end step. So very, very difficult creature to kind of interact with, to say the least, and I really like it. It's a nice crewer too, 3/1, so good to crew our vehicles, solid crewer too. Rite of Oblivion, this is going to just be a decent card to have for our vehicles of like are basically going to pop back into our hand. We want them back into the grave. The key to this is for 1 black, 1 white. You sacrifice a permanent, and basically what you can do is you can exile any target non-land permanent. So super strong, and also has a flashback clause, so you can play it back again for its flashback. Very sweet card. I love this card. Oswald Fendabender. This is going to be like an onboard sack outlet for us, for our vehicles. It's definitely got the Timmy energy, and what I mean by that is it's going to be able to probably go over the top with some of our vehicles. Like for instance, I have the Oswald out, and I have a Parhelion 2 that's just swung and made some angels, and now it's exhausted its resources. It's going to be popping back to my hand. Instead, I could pay a mana. I could play a plains and tap Oswald and sacrifice that vehicle. And the Parhelion 2 is an 8 cost, and I do have a 9 cost in my deck. It's the Portal to Phyrexia. So that would be a really cool combination to try to pull off. Just have to make sure I don't draw the portal in my opening hand. That would be kind of sad. But I really like the possibilities for the Oswald in this deck. It's going to be fun. So I will be playing Snow. So just kind of a benefit to run Snow is just these kind of board wipes, such as this, where I can bring back creatures to the board based on how much snow is spent. So I like Blood on the Snow. I like how it interacts with the whole board and all the players. Kind of can get you out of some dicey spots if some different types of aggro decks are coming at you pretty hard. I really like Blood on the Snow. Then I got some snow-covered plains. I already had a few. Some snow-covered swamps are here as well. Oh, here we go. So Agadeem's Awakening, I have this in my Dimir deck already, but it's going to be fine in here. Just a multi-face card. It's proven its worth over and over, where you can just get value out of your land. You can play this as a land, or you can play it as a spell. So it's just kind of a no-brainer. So for 3 black, the X cost is you can bring back. So for instance, if I paid 3X, so that'd be 6 mana total, I could bring a 3 cost back, a 2 cost back, and a 1 cost card to the battlefield. And then of course in increments it goes up. So for instance, I've played 5 mana total, and then the 3 swamps, so 8 mana total. I would be eligible to bring back a 5 mana creature, 4 mana creature, a 3 mana creature, 2 mana creature, and 1 mana creature to the battlefield from the graveyard. So yeah, it's a very sweet card there. Stitcher Supplier, this is just going to be a great self-milling effect. Hopefully I can get this in the opening hand, but it should be fine like at any stage of the game, really. I'll be able to like quickly mill cards into my grave, and I do have some, like going back to like the Rite of Oblivion, that'd be kind of a nice hit to get some value out of the graveyard at any time. Of course, I'd want to get vehicles in the graveyard if this is in my opener too. So Citrus Supplier is fantastic. Okay, Phyrexian Tower. This is also just another cool land that's going to give me some extra value. And it's also going to be able to like act as a land that can sacrifice any vehicles that are left on the battlefield if I don't have any of those other effects. Like for instance, like an Oswald or a Rite of Oblivion or a Village Rites or a Deadly Dispute. This Phyrexian Tower acts as a land that's going to be able to get those vehicles back into the grave where I want them, so I can keep recurring them with Greasefang. Here's Lightning Greaves. So just a solid 2-drop I can equip for 0 and basically probably put on my commander. Equip creature has haste and shroud. I love the haste too. I think that's a fantastic. It really comes in handy. It looks like I ordered 2 by accident, so mea culpa. But these are in demand, so I probably have no problem like trading this off to anybody. Nautiloid Ship. Look at this freaking card, man. 4 mana, 5/5 flyer vehicle. Just sweet stats already. And Also, the flying is big, man. Flying is so good. So when Nautiloid Shimp enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Sure. Could even be my graveyard, but I really don't know if I'm going to be wanting to hit my graveyard too often. So whenever Nautiloid Ship deals combat damage to a player, you may put a creature card exiled with Nautiloid Ship into the battlefield under your control. It's crazy. It kind of reminds me of Zerasan a little bit, to a degree. For instance, if we can get a hold of some creature cards in some particular player's library, we just go ahead and once the Nautiloid Ship connects, deals the combat damage, we go ahead and take that creature and put under the battlefield under our control. So it's going to be fantastic. Lots of good support for Greasefang, really. Some of these vehicles are very strong. Just a little ramp here, the Orzhov Signet. It's a 2-mana artifact. Pay 1 and tap, add a Plains and Swamp. Definitely not as good as like the talismans that just come out and can start generating the mana the turn they come out, but nonetheless, it's still fine. It's a good form of ramp. Here's the Vault of Champions. This is a pricey land. It comes into to play untapped in Commander because it meets the clause of having 2 or more opponents. So the Vault of Champions is fantastic. Nice dual land here. Taps for Plains or Swamp. This card looks really cool. This is called the Smuggler's Buggy. Also another 4-mana cost vehicle of 5/5. So once again, pretty decent stats. And has Hideaway 4. So when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile one of them face down and put the rest on the bottom in a random order. When a Smuggler's Buggy deals combat damage to a player, you may cast an exiled card without paying its mana cost. If you do, return Smuggler's Buggy to its owner's hand. Like, there's a thing about like being a target in EDH, but man, you could have some really explosive starts with this deck. And it might be hard for the opponent to overcome, really. Here's the Big Daddy right here. This is kind of the card that we want to be looking for to put in our grave like as soon as possible. We have a couple Entome effects, and I think one of them was called like Marked Grave or some sort of one colorless, 1 swamp. And basically it is search your library, put the card, any of those cards into your graveyard. So we have a couple of those effects, and literally, I mean, that's kind of what you want to do, is you want to get off to a start where on turn 3 you have a Parhelion coming out and swinging at your opponent and making 2/4/4 flying angels. I mean, it's kind of like what this deck is intended to do, and we're going to do the thing. I mean, what can I tell you? We're going to just do the thing. So that's the Parhelion too. We also have some value vehicles, like, you know, it's going to be nice to recur vehicles, but you also want to play some lower cost vehicles that also have some nice value to it. So this is a nice card, the Peaceworker Colossus. Is actually fantastic for this deck because for 3 mana you can play it. It's a crew for 4, so it has a kind of a higher crew cost. It is a 6/6, however, for 1 colorless and a Plains, another target vehicle I control becomes an artifact creature until end of turn, so it can bypass the crew cost. So just another great addition to the deck. Here's Weatherlight. This is a really good value vehicle. I'm not going to be sad seeing this come down with Greasefang on turn 3 and swinging with this card and digging into my library. You get to look, once it connects, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your library, reveal a historic card, meaning an artifact, and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. Also for a historic card, that would also be like legendary creatures and sagas. So there you go. Weatherlight, it's a legendary artifact, 4 cost, flying 4/5, crew for 3. So it works really well with Greasefang. To be coming out turn 3 is fine. This kind of looks like a spicy little card right here. Incarnation Technique, where I can mill 5 cards and return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. and I may copy it so I can, if I do, another player can also do the same, mill cards and return a creature card to the battlefield. So, yeah, I mean, you give your opponent a chance to bring out, you know, a creature of some sort. But I really think it's we have such a graveyard matters type of deck. I feel it's going to be fine, and we do have some creature cards that are going to be worthwhile to hit out of our grave, and we'll get to those in a few. But for instance, some of them that you're not going to be able to see because it's not part of the order. For instance, like Elish Norn is in this deck. And I have a couple other value creatures that are important too. Tainted Field. So this is just another dual. It seems fine. Activate only if you control a swamp. It's just another dual land. Seems fine. Talisman of Hierarchy. This is a 2-mana cost artifact. It is this is the talisman that we were referring to, where it can come down and start producing mana immediately. It does deal 1 damage to you if you do produce a plains or a swamp. Here's the Night Paladin. This is a really awesome card, and I've heard of like people's strategies, like instead of just rocking out the Parhelion and just just completely owning their friends, they rather just like even recur the Night Paladin, which just whenever it enters the battlefield it deals 4 damage to each opponent. So basically you're just kind of recurring the Night Paladin out over and over again and dealing damage to your opponents. It's crazy. What a card. 5 mana, trample. The crew is only 1. When Night Paladin enters the battlefield, deals 4 damage to each opponent. Crazy. Here's another big Papa vehicle here. It has flying and indestructible. 7 mana. Eternity Gate. Whenever Necron Monolith attacks, mill 3 cards. For each creature card milled this way, create a 2/2 black Necron Warrior artifact creature token. So it just keeps building our graveyard gas, and has a pretty decent crewing cost. The crew cost is good for Greasefang. Greasefang has a power of 4, so this is going to be fine too on turn 3. Here's a Reaver Titan. This is another similar card that we were kind of discussing that's like the Night Paladin. It's even a little bit stronger. So it has protection from mana value 3 or less, and whenever Reaver Titan attacks, it deals 5 damage to each opponent, just coming down. I mean, this is very strong too. I mean, man, it's just brutal. Something to consider. Maybe if you just need to get that extra damage and finish off an opponent, a problematic opponent, this could be the card even over a Parhelion. You're dealing 5 damage to each opponent. It's a 10/10. It's really strong. This seems like another cool value artifact. Like, it's at 6, so maybe it's a little high in the cast, but I wouldn't mind like even casting this, yeah, for 6. So when it enters the battlefield, create 2/2 white Ace Starters Warrior creature tokens with Vigilance. So it kind of has that Eska's Chariot vibe going on. And whenever a Thunderhawk Gunship attacks, attacking creatures you control gain flying until end of turn. Very cool. Very cool. Flying is so good. So this is like kind of my my little influence here is the Ratadrabic of Urborg. So I felt like this would be a really good addition to the deck. Considering that we do have some legendary vehicles in the deck. We have some legendary creatures, such as Greasefang. So just going through these vehicles, like a lot of them are non-legendary, but cards like the Parhelion, that is a legendary artifact. So let's see if we can just open that up here. So how this would work with Ratadrabic, it's really spicy. So if you were able to have Ratadrabic on the board and the Parhelion, and you were able to sacrifice the Parhelion through one of our sack outlets, Ratadrabic would actually turn the Parhelion into a 2/2 zombie token. I believe it would still be a vehicle as well, which is kind of wild. So that just is just crazy to like have the legend rule not taking effect. And the implications for this are like numerous. You can even have like 2 Greasefangs on the board. And I think once that happens, it's kind of good game. So very excited to see that interaction. I think that's kind of like the worst possible for this deck, is to have your Ratadrabic on board and have it protected. Could be trouble for the opponent. Okay, so some more snow-covered plains here. Here's another one of the creatures that's going to be able to like discard at will. This is similar to the Guardian of New Benalia. It's a 3/1 instead. There's no really special text. Like for instance, there's no unlist abilities or anything like that. But it does have the discard a card, tap Season Hollowblade. It gains indestructible until end of turn. That's a 1 colorless, 1 plains, 3/1. So super good stats. For 3/1, very hard to kill as well. Here's our getting into our super duper value vehicles, which we're definitely gonna like be very happy to cast rather than cheat from the graveyard. So for instance, our Smuggler's Copter. When Smuggler's Copter attack, it has flying for 2 mana at 3/3. Whenever Smuggler's Copter attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So it's perfect. It's a vehicle, and it's going to do what we want. It's going to help us selectively bin into our graveyard and draw us cards, draw us more gas. Here's the Stinkweed Ip. I thought I was going to get an older art, but this is fine. This has, when this thing is in your graveyard, you have the ability to do it. It's called Dredge. So it's a 3 mana card for flying. It's a 1/2. So the stats are not impressive for that. However, it does have it has kind of like a pseudo death touch, where if it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature. So that's fine. Also for the Dredge, so that's the main thing we're looking here. If we can get this into our graveyard, instead of drawing a card for turn when it is our draw step, we can actually we can basically mill 5 cards into our graveyard from the top of our library, and then return this card as if it was our draw for the turn from the graveyard. So it's just going to really, really helpful to build our graveyard if we're looking for anything specific. Here's a Mesmeric Orb. This is just some additional mill for us. It's also going to mill our opponents, so it can be kind of, kind of on the dangerous side, because people can sometimes get a graveyard value. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to basically it's going to help us more than our opponents. Let's just say that. So there's a Mesmeric Orb. Here's the Concealed Courtyard. It enters the battlefield tap unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. So add a Plains or Swamp, another dual land. I love dual lands. This is good. Ooh, and here is our commander, everybody. This is who we've been waiting for, is Greasefang. Greasefang, the Okiba boss. Yeah, she's a babe. She's a rat pilot. 1 colorless, 1 plains, and 1 swamp. So 4/3. So just on the surface level, it is a legendary creature. Keep in mind, this is a very good stat line. It's comparable to a lot of strong green 3-drops that have 4 power. That might also have 3 toughness and some additional stats to go along with it, or different benefits. But what's great about Greasefang, though, is, let me read you the card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to the owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step. So it's a very explosive card. This card is also known as Cheesefang because it's just a cheesy card. But I'm okay to have a cheesy deck. I want to give it a shot. I want to kind of, have those really strong games where I'm doing my thing, so I think it's fine, and we'll see how it goes, but I'm kind of excited. So there's Greasefang, the Okiba boss. And here's just another dual land. So this one you can add colorless, or you could pay a plains or a swamp. You could add double plains, a plains or a swamp, or 2 swamps, so it's just some nice fixing there. And it looks like we got some fancy dancy cards that they kept in the top loader. So, ooh, it's a foil too. Nice. I didn't know I ordered foil. Oh shit, that's sick. So there's the Portal of Phyrexia. This is another little spicy. We're gonna be hoping to hit this with Oswald with our Parhelion Dream. So if you don't know about this card, it's pretty wild. It's been used in Standard now with the Invoke Justice and Repair and Recharge decks that were kind of hot for a minute. And you probably don't see as much as that. Mono Red is kind of taken over the meta game, and it's extremely fast. So you need to have a board presence, and sometimes like it's just very difficult to deal with. Like a Kumano faces Kakazan and a couple Phoenix Chicks, amongst some other hasty threats like the Swift Spear. That's just a very strong deck. So, but I love this card. It's 9 mana, and usually want to cheat it out in some manner because 9 cost is definitely a heavy price to pay for it. But when this Portal to Phyrexia enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. So really great for Commander. Everybody it's your opponent sacrifices 3 creatures, so it can stabilize the board. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It is a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. So you get to reanimate any creature that's in any graveyard. Yeah, any graveyard. And it becomes a Phyrexian. So there you go. And this is also a very sweet card. This card is especially has some renown. I believe it was banned from Standard. Yeah. And then it was nerfed in like Historic and Alchemy. What made this card really fantastic is its selectivity and the draining effect of it. It's pretty wild. So what was a pretty common, I'd say, play line with this would be in Rakdos. This card was especially good at this with the Fable of Kiki Jiki, and usually you would be actually hitting your own creatures, but this was a very easy way to stabilize with Rakdos. You could especially against like mono white or any creature decks that have creatures with power toughness 4 or greater. Basically, you're on curve with your Kiki, and then you'd be able to attack with your Goblin Shaman, which would let you basically get up to 3, where you could do a -3, and honestly, that would probably be enough to kind of wipe out any kind of threatening board that your opponent might have. Sure, an Adeline would survive through that, and that could be problematic. But you'd definitely be taking out all the creatures that were next to it too, so it wouldn't be as a big deal. And so the additional text to this is that whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life, and whenever a creature an opponent control dies, you gain 1 life. So you're just gaining a ton of life, and you're like stabilizing the board, and this thing just sits there, and you just keep gaining life, and your opponents just keep losing life as your creatures die. So what a card. This card is just fantastic, and I'm very excited. The Meathook Massacre. All right, so we have one more package here. I don't really know what else I could get out of this. I think I might have another package coming through. It looks like these cards are related to the Orzhov deck as well. It looks like they're just snow-covered plains. So that's cool. Yeah, so that's it for the deck. The deck review so far. That was the cards we've been waiting on for about a week or a couple weeks actually. So thanks for hanging out with me, and till next time, hopefully I have this deck kind of put together and we can try and take a look at it. But thanks a lot. Cheers.